Imagine possessing an asset so immensely valuable that the entire modern world just relies on it to function.
Oh, absolutely.
Like your economy, global finance, the actual intelligence of the internet, it all runs through this one single asset.
Right.
And your ultimate strategy for defending it against a vastly superior military force
Yeah.
isn't, a bigger army or some impenetrable
Or
fortress.
even a secret weapon, yeah.
Exactly. It's
Mhm.
your ability to instantly, permanently turn that priceless asset into useless dust.
Which is wild because it completely flips the traditional script of warfare on its head. I mean, when you watch the daily news, the framing of global geopolitics is overwhelmingly focused on military exercises and naval
Oh
fleets.
yeah, those big red alert maps on the
Yeah,
screen.
right, exactly. It treats a conflict over Taiwan as this inevitability, like a classic 20th century clash of tanks and troops just waiting to happen.
Which is exactly the panic-inducing media noise we are cutting through today in this deep dive.
Yes, definitely.
We are exploring a really brilliant, unconventional perspective from Levny Moten.
It's a great piece.
Yeah, it's laid out on his channel, Uncompressed Thinking. And Nemoten, he challenges that entire televised narrative of a looming invasion.
He really does. He argues that the talking heads are just completely missing the underlying industrial reality of what Taiwan actually is.
Right.
And more importantly, what it holds. He introduces this concept that completely changes the strategic calculus. He calls it the chip dead switch.
The chip dead switch. I mean, it sounds like a plot device from a spy thriller or something.
It totally does.
Yeah.
But it is deeply, deeply grounded in the physical reality of how the modern world is actually manufactured.
Yeah.
To really get the mechanics of this dead switch, we first have to completely reframe what an invading force would actually be trying to capture.
Right, because historically, conquest is mostly about geography and
Yeah.
natural resources.
Exactly. Land and material.
Like if you want a coal mine, you just roll the tanks in, secure the perimeter, raise your flag, and tell the local workers to keep digging.
Yeah, the coal is still in the ground.
The physical infrastructure is rugged. You conquer a capital city to control the population and the tax base. The asset survives the conquest.
But Nemoten points out that Taiwan's main strategic possession isn't its land, and it certainly isn't its conventional military power.
Right.
The true prize is its unique, highly concentrated capability to produce the world's most advanced microchips.
The literal beating heart of the digital world for you, me, and everyone listening.
Exactly, and capturing that capability requires a fundamentally different approach than, say, securing an oil field or a steel mill.
Because these chips are the foundation of artificial intelligence.
Right.
The servers powering global data centers, advanced weapon systems, aviation.
Logistics, finance, all of it.
Yeah. The entire modern infrastructure relies on a steady, uninterrupted flow of Taiwanese silicon.
Right.
But Nemoten uses this incredible description to differentiate this from traditional manufacturing. He says a leading-edge chip fab is not just a factory.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah, he calls it a living technological organism.
And that biological metaphor is just incredibly accurate when you look at the sheer scale of sensitivity involved here.
How so?
Well, we need to look at how these chips are actually made. We are talking about operating at the nanometer scale.
Right, which is incomprehensibly small.
It really is. The pathways being carved into these silicon wafers are smaller than a biological virus.
Wow.
So in that environment, a single microscopic speck of dust doesn't just cause a minor defect. It acts like a massive boulder crashing into a microscopic highway.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it can ruin millions of dollars of product in just a fraction of a second.
Nemoten details exactly what makes up this living ecosystem, and it is staggering. Like, we are talking about ultra-pure water, for instance.
Right, the water is a huge factor.
At the nanometer scale, regular purified water is practically toxic.
Yeah, it's not clean enough.
Exactly.
Mhm.
A single microscopic mineral left over in the water used to wash the wafers will destroy the entire batch.
It's crazy.
The infrastructure required just to maintain the mathematical chemical purity of the water running through the fab is an engineering marvel on its own.
And then you combine that water purification system with highly volatile chemical gases, right? And those have to be mixed at exact ratios.
Right, so there's zero margin for error.
Zero. You have pristine, clean rooms with HVAC systems that cannot fluctuate by even a fraction of a degree in temperature or humidity.
Not even a fraction of a degree.
No, because the materials would expand or contract. And you have incredibly complex machines like these EUV lithography scanners.
The ones with the lasers.
Yeah, they use lasers and mirrors so precise they could hit a golf ball on the moon.
That is just unbelievable.
And crucially, you have proprietary software running these machines that requires constant real-time updates and handshakes from foreign vendors.
So it's this hyper-precise orchestration. And the human element is just as vital.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not a matter of simply turning a machine on and letting it run.
Right.
It requires an army of highly specialized engineers constantly calibrating the equipment.
Yeah, adjusting the chemical flows and maintaining the clean room environment.
So when you view the fab as a living organism, you really realize its extreme fragility.
Exactly. Like if the HVAC system loses power for just an hour, the temperature fluctuates and the wafers currently in the machines expand or contract at a microscopic level.
And the material is just ruined.
Completely ruined. If the supply of a specific chemical gas is interrupted, the whole process breaks down entirely.
So if you break enough of that highly sensitive ecosystem, the prize simply disappears.
It's gone.
You can't conquer a nanometer-scale clean room with artillery shells. You can't force complex atomic-level calibration at gunpoint.
Right, you just can't.
If the living organism dies, an invading force isn't left with a technological powerhouse. They are left with a massive, very expensive, totally useless concrete building.
And that fragility is the foundation of Neymoten's entire argument on uncompressed thinking. The prize isn't the physical location.
It's the ecosystem.
Exactly. It's the continuous, unbroken chain of that ecosystem. Because that technological organism is so incredibly fragile, its very vulnerability actually becomes Taiwan's ultimate weapon.
It creates a unique kind of deterrence that traditional military planners just struggle to account for.
Yeah, they don't know what to do with it.
But let's look at this from the invader's perspective, though. Because Neymoten emphasizes the concepts of concentration and visibility.
Right.
Taiwan's advanced chip production isn't dispersed across some vast, hidden underground bunker network.
Like, no, it's highly visible.
It's concentrated in a few very well-known technological parks on the western coast. Anyone with internet access can see exactly where they are.
Yeah, you just look it up on a map.
So if these fabs are concentrated in known visible locations, what's stopping a lightning strike special forces operation from just dropping in, securing the perimeter, and taking the prize before the ecosystem can be disrupted?
I mean, it is the most logical military question to ask. If you know where the gold is, you plan a heist that is faster than the guards can react.
Right?
But this is exactly where the mechanics of the chip dead switch counter traditional military thinking.
Okay, how so?
Taiwan doesn't need to fight off the special forces to protect the asset. They just need to trigger the switch.
And triggering it doesn't require like a cinematic sequence where a president punches a code into a red button inside a glass box.
Yeah. No, it's not like that at all.
It's not about planting explosives under the building. It's about severing the life support of the organism.
Exactly. The sequence of disabling actions can be astonishingly simple and incredibly fast.
Like what? What can they actually do?
Well, they can remotely corrupt the proprietary software that operates the lithography machines.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, without the digital handshake from the software vendors, the machines instantly brick themselves.
So they just become giant paperweights.
Basically, yeah. They can vent the clean rooms, allowing ambient air and microscopic dust to flood the manufacturing floors.
Which ruins the nanometer pathways.
Right. They can intentionally contaminate the ultra-pure water systems. They can simply wipe the calibration data from the central servers.
It's like trying to rob a bank vault.
Mm-hmm.
But the very act of breaching the door instantly incinerates all the cash inside.
That's a perfect analogy.
In a matter of minutes, before the invading forces can even secure the lobby, a multi-billion-dollar facility is rendered entirely useless.
The strategic reality is that the crown jewel can be turned to broken glass instantly. The technology to operate the fabs is locked behind digital and physical safeguards that can just be permanently scrambled.
Right.
And replacing that equipment or rebuilding that environment takes years and hundreds of billions of dollars.
And that's assuming you can even source the parts, which an occupying force under global sanctions definitely could not.
Exactly. They'd be completely cut off.
But the core psychological element of this deterrence is fascinating. Because as a listener, you have to ask yourself,
Would they really do it?
yeah, would Taiwan actually pull the trigger? Would they purposefully destroy the engine of their own economy, their global leverage, at the very beginning of an invasion?
It seems like an unthinkable sacrifice.
I really thought.
But Neymoten addresses that question directly, and his answer gets to the very heart of deterrence theory. He essentially says, your guess is as good as mine.
So the ambiguity isn't a flaw in their defense strategy.
It is the defense.
Wow.
Precisely. That suspense, that fundamental uncertainty, completely paralyzes the standard military cost-benefit analysis.
Right, because you can't calculate the odds.
Exactly. When military planners in Beijing sit down to calculate the odds of a successful invasion, they cannot know for certain whether the infrastructure would survive capture.
They might have a perfect tactical plan to secure the beaches and capture the tech parks.
But if the probability of the asset self-destructing is 50% or 70% or even 30%, how do you justify the immense cost of the war?
You can't. You are basically rolling the dice on triggering the self-destruction of the very prize you were trying to win.
It's psychological warfare based entirely on industrial reality.
And because that hostage will self-destruct, it completely rewrites the military playbook for the two superpowers watching from the sidelines.
It really forces us to look at the geopolitical irony of this situation, starting with China's dilemma.
Right, because China needs these specific chips desperately. They aren't just some luxury import.
No, they're critical.
China is currently racing to dominate artificial intelligence, advanced computing, and high-tech industrial manufacturing.
And they are modernizing their military, developing hypersonic glide vehicles, and advanced targeting systems.
All of those ambitions, that entire technological trajectory for the 21st century, runs directly on Taiwanese silicon.
It does. So a kinetic war that freezes, contaminates, or forces the disabling of Taiwan's chip ecosystem wouldn't just send the global economy into a tailspin.
It would be a direct, devastating strike against China's own national goals.
Exactly. Destroying Taiwan's fabs effectively destroys China's ability to compete in the AI revolution.
So an invasion that turns the jewel into broken glass defeats the fundamental purpose of the action.
You don't burn down the only store in town that sells the one thing you need to survive.
Exactly. So the leverage Taiwan holds over China is massive. But the United States equation is equally complex, right?
Yeah, the U.S. is in a tricky spot.
The U.S. doesn't want the fabs destroyed either.
Yeah.
American tech giants, auto manufacturers, defense contractors, they all rely on the exact same ecosystem.
Right.
But the U.S. is playing a different, incredibly expensive long game to try and change this dynamic.
They are actively trying to de-risk the situation by creating backup production on their own soil.
Like the GPS Act.
Exactly. This is the driving force behind massive legislative pushes like the GPS Act. They are injecting billions of dollars to build advanced fabs in places like Arizona and Ohio.
But Namoten's analysis requires us to look at the physical realities of that backup plan.
Right, it's not that simple.
Because you can't just throw $50 billion at a patch of desert and expect a living, breathing technological organism to pop up overnight.
No, exactly. The U.S. backup capacity is currently highly imperfect and incomplete. Building a fab is one of the most complex construction projects on Earth.
And more importantly, it requires a human ecosystem that the U.S. currently lacks at scale.
Yeah, the people are the hardest part.
Taiwan has spent decades cultivating a deeply specialized, multi-generational engineering culture built entirely around semiconductor manufacturing.
You have entire supply chains, material vendors, and academic programs densely packed into a small geographic area, all feeding the organism.
You can't replicate that kind of institutional knowledge and synchronized supply chain in 5 years just by pouring concrete.
You really can't.
The physical building is the easy part, staffing it with thousands of process engineers who understand the microscopic nuances of ultra-pure water and EUV calibration.
That is the real bottleneck.
Yeah.
It takes a massive amount of time and capital to spin up, so the U.S. backup capacity is not enough yet.
Right.
However, the trajectory is shifting. The ongoing investment means that 5 or 10 years from now, the U.S. will have a much more robust domestic supply.
They are actively moving to reduce their dependence on that single point of failure in the Pacific.
So while the U.S. might suffer slightly less than China in the event of a disruption a decade from now, right now, today, the impact would be catastrophic for everyone.
Which leads to Namoten's most fascinating synthesis of the global board.
Yeah, this is the kicker.
In one very narrow, very uncomfortable sense, the United States and China are actually on the exact same side regarding a Taiwan war.
It is the ultimate geopolitical irony. I mean, these two superpowers have completely opposed political ideologies.
Oh, totally.
Their long-term strategic goals are in direct conflict. They are competing for global influence across every domain. But they both deeply fundamentally understand that Taiwan must not become a physical battlefield.
Because if the bombs start falling or the special forces start landing, the dead switch gets flipped, whether intentionally or accidentally.
Right.
The global chip heart stops beating. And neither the American nor the Chinese tech sectors can survive that cardiac arrest right now.
It completely reframes how we should view global relations.
It really does. It's not about fragile peace treaties or diplomatic handshakes or shared moral values.
No.
It is about a mutual, terrifying reliance on an incredibly fragile piece of industrial technology.
Which brings us full circle back to the media panic we discussed at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Yeah, the invasion hysteria.
Right. When you lay out this technological and industrial defense mechanism, you arrive at Namoten's ultimate stance on the situation.
Which is?
He concludes that a direct Chinese military seizure of Taiwan is a remote possibility. In fact, he goes so far as to call it close to an impossibility in rational strategic terms.
The operative word there being rational.
Yes.
And Namoten is careful to offer a crucial caveat, like a dose of historical realism.
Because politics is never completely clean or perfectly logical.
Right. Leaders operate in echo chambers, they receive flawed intelligence, they miscalculate their opponent's resolve, and they act out of nationalistic pride.
Yeah. History is littered with disastrous military campaigns that made absolutely zero economic or strategic sense.
War is very often born from profound miscalculation rather than perfect logic.
But Namoten's core point remains. If we are analyzing the situation rationally, the daily invasion hysteria we see dominating the headlines belongs firmly in the land of political talking heads.
It is rhetoric designed to generate clicks, viewer anxiety, and political posturing.
Exactly. It does not reflect the underlying, immovable industrial reality of the semiconductor supply chain.
The television maps showing troop movements completely ignore the microscopic reality of the clean rooms.
They do.
They treat the situation like a game of Risk, rather than a hostage negotiation where the hostage is literally rigged to explode.
The analytical lens Namoten provides from uncompressed thinking really reminds us that power in the modern era isn't just about who has the largest navy or the most advanced stealth fighters. It is about who controls and who can destroy the vital mechanisms that allow the modern world to function.
So the serious question we should be asking isn't the one the media constantly shouts, when will the invasion happen?
Yeah.
The serious question, the one Namoten poses, and the one he believes President Xi likely ponders in his quietest, most strategic moments, is this.
Why seize a jewel that may turn to dust in your hand?
It's a profound question that halts standard military planning in its tracks. Taiwan's defense is deeply permanently embedded in the fact that its greatest treasure becomes completely unusable the exact moment someone tries to steal it by force.
It is an industrial defense mechanism unlike anything we have seen in modern history.
It transforms a narrative of impending military doom into a brilliant masterclass on technological deterrence. I want to thank you for joining us as we explore this incredible framework from Lev Namoten and his channel Uncompressed Thinking.
It's been great. It really completely changes the way you look at the news.
It's a vital reminder to look past the political noise and examine the physical and industrial realities that actually govern global power dynamics.
Absolutely.
As you go back to your day, and perhaps the next time you see a terrifying red alert headline about global conflict, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We spent the last half-century assuming that the ultimate deterrent against global war was the threat of nuclear annihilation.
Right.
But if a nation's absolute greatest defense today is its ability to instantly destroy its own most valuable industrial asset, well, what other global conflicts might currently be held in check not by the threat of nuclear arsenals or massive armies, but by the invisible, silent threat of mutually assured technological destruction?